For being such a young age, I luckily managed to experience a lot of classic gaming titles early on. Ones such as Final Fantasy, Pokemon Stadium, Super Mario 64, etc. These games solidified my foundation and gaming interest as a whole, and still leave me with many fond memories to this day. Monster Rancher 2 was a much lesser known game that I played during my younger years, and is one of the more unique experiences I've had with video games. Being greeted at the beginning of the game with such catchy music brings me so much nostalgia. Probably helped by the fact that I didn't have a memory card at the time, so I may have heard the start music a bit too much. It starts off much like Pokemon, where after being initiated as a monster trainer, you may obtain your first monster out of a small choice from the shop. Much like Pokemon starters though, with a twist in the fact you can just purchase one. The main draw about Monster Rancher though, is this is not the only way to obtain monsters. Via a disc reading system, where you can insert a CD into your PlayStation, it would generate a monster for you based on the date on the disc.
Like the thing didn't look like it whatsoever and then it just sort of appeared. Nice.
This is one of the coolest monster generation methods I've seen. It really makes the monster feel unique to you based on your specific collection of CDs. It also apparently has unique stat generation for each monster per CD, so that's kinda cool. I remember sifting through my parents' hoard of CDs, attempting to find the sickest monster I could find. You could literally insert a Backstreet Boys album and get some freaky snake. It was pretty legit, especially as a kid. There are also some instances where the monster it was trying to load was too powerful to raise for your current rank, so you would have to write down notes of which CDs had the best monsters and return back to them later. Phil Collins. Yep, this one has a fucking dragon. Oh, we'll come back for you, Phil. Another feature that you could make use of was choosing to freeze your monster. Bit weird looking back on it, but for a monster you may want to use at another time. You can solidify them and then you can unfreeze them at a later date, like Fry in Futurama, except of being accepted into some futuristic utopia, you're being made to fight against your will. Okay, maybe not so similar. You could also combine your creatures, but as cool as that sounds, it was pretty basic. Combining a weird eyeball dude and a rabbit sounds like disaster. It still is, to be fair, but it really only retextures it based on the subset of species it is. I mean, you can make much stronger monsters with this method, so that's a definite draw. Plus, it does add to the uniqueness of each monster, which in a console with such limited capabilities was probably a good call by the developers. Anyway, after selecting your monster, you'll be brought back to the ranch to raise your monster. Monster Rancher 2 does not have random encounters, nor does it include an overworld which you can walk around in. The game is experienced from the player's eyes and has a large focus on bonding with your monster. This is because of the realistic simulated days system, where time does matter in many ways. Seasons will pass with obvious environmental changes, snow in the winter, leaves in the autumn and sun in the summer, etc. Certain people around the village will also visit you based on this too, and can affect how you may want to approach your schedule. Not only this, but your monster can grow older and eventually pass away. As a child, hearing this surprisingly dark music and realising what is actually happening was pretty heart-wrenching. Holy shit, he just keeled over and died? And now he's a ghost, I guess. Also realising I couldn't go back and save my little dinosaur guy before he was gone. I learned that I would have to freeze my monster as they would get older to ensure they wouldn't die and I would still have them with me. He's just fucking in there dead. It's a more realistic take on monster raising, and honestly, not something I was prepared for. It's really sold by all the various music that plays, and hints drop throughout the game. Sometimes it's mentioned that your monster is sick, and you can't really be sure if it's a serious issue or not. You even have like a funeral day for your monster. Really sad. Yeah, this is like really dark sounding, but also way funnier than I expected. I enjoy this feature of the game a lot as it creates a bond with your chosen monster, since your time together may not be forever, much like other games. I can see more so why people choose to do the Nuzlocke challenges in Pokemon and why they're effective after comparing the two.
It's a Drake meme.
Now, with the depressing stuff out of the way, what is the actual goal of the game? What can I do with my monster? Monster Rancher 2 is a relatively non-linear game in the way that you don't have to focus on the main objective. You can still have fun through many side quests which may become the main game to you. The main objective being to become the best monster tamer in the region through winning tournaments. Sounds kinda familiar, doesn't it? While you can draw similarities to Pokemon through this, the battling system and the methods in which you train your monster are actually pretty different. Your monster has various stats, as you would expect, which you can train through numerous drills, each one focusing on a specific stat. The game will play a cutscene with your monster attempting to perform the drill and show whether it fails or not. Depending on the success rate, it will gain a certain amount of points in that stat. Simple, right? At first glance, yes, but on another look, there is a lot of micromanagement involved with scheduling your monster's development. Tournaments appear at specific times and also at different ranks. Scheduling your training of your preferred stats around this is key. Not to mention your monster needs to be fed properly with food it prefers. It also needs to rest, otherwise you will overwork it. This can be troublesome when you don't think ahead and the day before a tournament your monster is exhausted or it hasn't ate properly. It's an interesting minigame and I think you can really enjoy it if you become immersed and appreciate the creative control it gives you. Along with all of this, like I've mentioned before, your time is limited with your specific monster, so bringing out its potential quickly in order to complete objectives can be stressful, but it's really satisfying when it does work. The battling system is also a unique one. Instead of turn-based attacks, it's sort of semi-real-time. You're equipped with several attacks which you can learn through training your monster or by engaging in side quests such as expeditions. Should probably also mention that you are given the option to whether you want to control your monster or not. I would suggest taking control as the AI is not exactly great. You can't use your attacks anywhere you want, however. You can move your monster backwards and forward within a 2D plane, and depending on the range you are from your opponent, it will define the attack that you can perform. Attacks also expend energy, known as guts in this game, which will regenerate over time. You can also press triangle when close to your opponent to send them away. I think it depends if you have more guts than your opponent if it allows you to do this, I'm not exactly sure. Some monsters prefer to be up close with high damaging attacks, while others can maintain a range quite well. It opens up some interesting playstyles, especially when you consider how you can choose to train your monster. It's not a perfect system though. Sometimes you can sit there throwing at a move and it's just not going to hit. Or you'll be waiting around for a while for your guts to fill, which is pretty boring honestly. It's a unique but flawed battle system. I would have liked to see more depth in the battling aspect. Maybe you could cheer on your monster and it would buff it, or more customizable skills which you have consistently practiced with them. Even something like if your monster learns something after facing specific opponents, perhaps being more comfortable versus a certain species, or if it's a close battle could receive injuries, would maybe make it more immersive. I think immersion is the key word here, and is the reason I have such a soft spot for this genre of games after all. A simulation has to feel realistic, and I think Monster Rancher does a great job of that, considering the time period it was released in. Bonding with a digital creature sounds ridiculous, but the more you play, the more Monster Rancher evokes emotions through its enchanting soundtrack, realistic gameplay choices, and not to mention its endearing monster designs. I think this is a game which may have flew under the radar for a lot of people. It has an anime and various other sequels, however I think this is the best depiction that Monster Rancher has to offer. If you have a soft spot for the monster taming genre like me, then I would highly suggest you give it a try, despite it being such an old game. You don't have to play it for a long time to experience what it has to offer. Who knows, you might bond with the Phil Collins dragon.